Good morning, everyone. It's great to have you here with us, and welcome to our next webinar in our ongoing series of next generation technologies that are shaping the future of the IT landscape. Today, we've got some special guests with us from ADP. We're going to be speaking about ransomware mitigation with Rubrik. ETWorks and ADP have been in a long-standing partnership delivering these technologies to our customers across our various regions. So we've got Melissa and Ian with us this morning. Good morning. Nice to have you here.
Morning.
Good morning. Next slide, please, Melissa. Yeah, just very briefly, want to, for those of you who are perhaps new to ETWorks, give you a quick minute rundown on what we do, who we are, and why you can trust working with us. So, Melissa, if you just want to go to the next slide. Just at a high level, ETWorks is a Nutanix cloud champion. We've been delivering enterprise cloud solutions for the last 7 years across the EMEA region. In fact, globally, we have customers as far away as the Far East and in regions like India and China, as well as in North America and across the EMEA region. We've done a number of global firsts in partnership with the likes of Nutanix, Haiku, Citrix, NVIDIA, and Rubrik, delivering these future next generation technologies, if I can call them that, to bring innovation, flexibility, cost reduction, and effectively more dynamic way of delivering IT services to our customer base. We also deliver fully managed and hosted cloud services, so infrastructure as a service, disaster recovery as a service, backup as a service, desktop as a service from our data centers in the UK, South Africa, and Norway, as well as our broader partnership with ADP. And I'll let Melissa and Ian fill you in a little bit on that more later. On the next slide, just at a high level, just to show the overall ecosystem that we deliver as a business, as ETWorks, and the partnerships, the strategic partnerships around that. We specialize in delivering hybrid cloud infrastructure solutions and services. So our sort of key cornerstone technologies, if I can call them that, would be around Nutanix, building private, hybrid, and multi-cloud solutions for the sort of core data center solutions, end user computing driven by Citrix and Xyframe. And then from a data protection side, that's where we are tightly partnered with the Should data protection team as well as Rubrik. And that's really where our focus area is going to be today. On the next slide, I've just got a high level view of some of the customers that ETWorks have onboarded in the past few years onto these technology platforms. I'm very pleased and proud to have customers that have adopted these very widely, including the technology that Ian's going to be speaking about today. So we'll be releasing a case study shortly with the Royal Opera House. They've got a joint Nutanix Rubrik ADP solution in place, delivering end-to-end platform for all their services to staff and client-facing services. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Melissa to do an introduction to ADP.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, friends. And thank you everyone for joining the session with us today. So I'm Melissa McDougall, Business and Channel Development Manager. And we've also got Ian Thompson with us today, Head of Data Services. So brief background then on assured data protection. Similar to ETWorks, we are a global solution provider. We've got our headquarters just north of Leeds and also our secondary office in Washington, DC. We've also got a satellite office in Singapore to support our APAC organisations. We've got over 100 years of industry experience through our senior management. Ian will be able to say when he gives a brief introduction that he's one of these that have also been sort of doing backup and disaster recovery for a couple of decades now. We're privately owned and operated. We reinvest a lot into our infrastructure and our service, as you'll see shortly. And we are Rubrik's largest and also first managed service provider. We've got well over 200 customers today with over 10 petabytes of data, that ranging from 5 terabytes right up to the 6 sort of petabyte mark. And we've got a number of consumption models available, which again, we can speak through in a couple of slides. So I'm now going to pass over to Ian, who will be able to talk around the technology that ADP can offer. So over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Mel. Stole some of my thunder there, but yes, I am the UK head of data services, been here at ADP for a few years now, been working specifically in cloud backup and data protection, and this is my 3rd decade. So been there, seen that, done that, and I want to talk to you today really about ransomware mitigation, about doing solid backups, about getting that data off site, and about being ready for any eventuality that might come up and catch you. So let's first of all talk about Rubrik, which is the platform we're talking about here to actually protect that data in the first instance. Let's talk very briefly briefly about how it works on this slide. So Rubrik as a software company has been around sort of maybe 6 years now, something like that, and they're refreshingly dynamic in the way that they deliver the product, in the way that they deliver new enhancements, and the way that the product's been put together. It's also been developed in a relatively new era where we're already interested in cloud connectivity, we're interested in cloud tiering, we're interested in clustering and scalability and zero downtime. And I'm pleased to say that the Rubrik product delivers all of these things. It's API first, which gives us the option to automate it. It gives us the options for rapid ingest as well by bringing those ever incremental backups directly into the appliance itself for fast backup. Instant recovery using the live mount technology is one of the big selling features of Rubrik, and actually enables you to take the backups that you've done of virtual machines and spin those up instantly onto your hypervisor, enable you to boot that actual device off the Rubrik appliance itself. The Rubrik appliance is incredibly secure. It's designed as an appliance. It's a sealed box. Nobody gets into that box other than Rubrik themselves. We don't have access to it as a service provider. Even as their #1 service provider, we don't have access to this box. It essentially comes as a self-contained appliance, including the disks, the caching, the SSD, the memory, everything it needs to work as a very efficient product. It's a sealed tin solution, and for that reason is extremely reliable. Also built into that is the ability to tear your data off for efficiencies, to send it off to the cloud, and generally keep the information that's sat on that Rubrik device, the most relevant and pertinent critical data you might want to recover. On the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about how assured data protection can also wrap around the in fact, sorry, apologies. On this particular slide, I want to talk to you about the immutable architecture. This is a really key part for ransomware. You'll hear this mentioned quite a few times. So one of the great things about Rubrik being built from the ground up and being so secure and having its own file system across the cluster is that that data cannot be modified. So where a number of other disk-to-disk technologies do exist today, and they're all really great products, the problem is that fundamentally all tend to sit on standard arrays, standard NAS or SAN devices or internal disk, and they sit on standard operating systems that do have accessibility from the outside world. And the problem with ransomware today is it's not just interested in encrypting your primary data. I mean, obviously that's its primary goal. It wants to cause disruption. It wants to encrypt that primary data and cause you pain. But actually the real pain is actually accessing those backups. It's actually encrypting your backups as well. And it knows about backup technologies that are out there today. It knows about the other vendors that use disk storage for putting that data down, and it will encrypt those backups. If you look at things like storage, for example, really common, you've got a top-end enterprise storage, you're running snapshots on that, and you feel secure. Well, unfortunately not, because now the ransomware is actually targeting NTP servers. It targets your AD. If it can elevate its privilege to get to your NTP servers, it can wind those clock forwards. And if you wind the clock forward on an NTP server by 10 years and everything in the environment starts to roll forward 10 years, suddenly your NAS devices and your SAN devices, they just delete all those snapshots because they shouldn't be kept for longer than 7 days or 4 weeks or whatever. So actually, ransomware, you know, in whatever variant you may have seen or read about it, is not as simple as it just comes along and encrypts a few documents anymore. They have got really sophisticated, and they will go after your backups as much as they will go after your primary data. Because at the end of the day, if you can simply erase your disks and do a fairly straightforward restore, then you're not going to bother paying the ransom, and that's not what they want at the end of the day. Now let's have the next slide, please, Mel. Okay, so now talking about backup as a service and what we do really to ensure that this backup is working for you. As I've already suggested, Rubrik is a fantastic platform. It's a superb product. And in fact, it's the only product that assures data protection supply, because we want to know that that backup is immutable and it is robust and it has worked. We also want to ensure that those backups have worked day to day. Backup is not an exciting project. People don't relish the idea of coming in the morning, sitting down, checking the backups. And to be honest, it doesn't always get done. Or worse than that, you get daily emails that come through to your inbox and they just become a bit complacent. You start ignoring them. Oh yeah, that server always fails. We don't let you do that. As part of the backup service, we actually put that device on site with various different financial options available for you. But we will also monitor that device. We'll monitor the hardware, but also we monitor those backups as well. And that's the really important thing. And we're going to be that guy that's going to nag you and say, hey, you know, do you realize this backup hasn't worked for a day? It hasn't worked for 2 days. Hey, that's 3 days now. You don't have a backup of this critical server. You've told us that it's critical. You know, we need you to do something here. You know, is that server still critical? Has it gone offline? Was it a maintenance problem? Is it a hardware issue? You know, work with us here. And we have a 24/7 support team across the globe who will nag you, quite frankly, to make sure that your backups are working, because unless your backups are working, you do not have a DR plan. Backups are absolutely fundamental to making that work. work. The other really important thing with backup as a service, delivered as a service wraparound, is we always over provision the equipment on site. Typically with a CapEx model, you come along and you buy the equipment you need today, and potentially you might put a little bit of space in there for growth. We like to put a lot of space in there for growth. We want to keep this as a customer relationship going on for a long time. We will deliver that capacity. You can pay as you grow into that capacity, ensuring that service doesn't go off. It ensures those backups are reliable and that they keep working as and when you need it, to make sure you are protected against ransomware and any other disaster that may come along. Next slide, please, Mel. So on the back of that as well, and I'm talking myself here into my third decade of doing cloud backup and recovery. Likewise, the rest of the senior management team here at Assured, we've been doing this a very long time, and we're conscious that we need to really communicate with the customers on a very simplistic basis about what's going on with the backup product. Nobody wants to know about the 150 backups that work successfully overnight. That's not new information. That's not interesting. What's really interesting is actually, on this example here, we have 2 machines or 2 jobs with a one-day failure. That means that they failed last night, but actually the day before they were fine. And that's okay at a glance. You can go, I can see what those servers are. Not that important. File that one away this morning. But if they aren't resolved, that moves to a 2-day failure, then to a 3-day failure. At this point, we're engaging with you and we're trying to understand if they need reclassifying. Are they still an issue? What do we want to do about this? ProtectView is our own unique IP. It's delivered from Assured DP. It's developed in-house, and we develop this in-house because we know what we want to show you. We know what's important. More importantly as well, for those larger and global customers, ProtectView consolidates all of your protection information into one single pane of glass and one daily email that simply tells you what's wrong. What's the problem? What do you need to fix, without any of the fluff telling you about how wonderful things are, how great it's working. We know it's all working, we know it's all great, but we just want to help you get down to the point and fix any problems you may have. Next slide there, Mel, please. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the DR side of things. So we've done all this fantastic work doing the backups. On top of that, what we've done is we've replicated that data from your site to one of our UK data centers, which is great. What we need to do is understand really how is that going to work if you were to be hit by a disaster, by a ransomware, by something that knocks out your environment. There's a number of different things that really differentiate between you trying to do this yourself and you having someone else on standby to do this as a professional with experience. So the first thing that happens, you come in the morning in the office and suddenly everything's hieroglyphics. You've got loads of Chinese documents, your websites are chucking out information nobody understands, services are gone offline, SQL's not working, and suddenly it dawns on you very quickly that you've got a big problem. The thing with ransomware is it just keeps going. So once that attack starts, it will spawn and spread across as many different devices as possible. And we're talking about servers, we're talking about desktops, we're talking about laptops, workstations. It will nest its way throughout the environment as quickly as it can because it's all about survival. As long as it can keep spreading and keep encrypting, then there's a much higher chance you're going to pay that ransom. So what's the first thing you have to do? Basically, you've got to think about how you're going to clean this up. You need to identify what you've got. You need to work out how you can remediate each and every server, workstation, and desktop, figure out how to manually boot them into safe mode, get drivers removed, do things, clean them all up manually. Maybe you're going to use virus checkers. Maybe there's white hat facilities out there that can give you information if it's a known about ransomware attack. All of this is taking time. You're sat there trying to work this out. You've got senior management who are sat there going, why is everything down? When can we get it back? What's the ETA? How is this going to work? And there's so many things to consider. How do you get your environment clean again? How do you restore a server back without it simply getting reinfected again until you've understood how that infection occurred in the first place? How did it get in? Did someone download something? Was it in through an email? Is it still sat on someone's desktop? Are you going to spend weeks cleaning all this for it to then just come straight back again? You can't do that. It's just not possible. No matter how much you think you can work your way through it, it's a very, very difficult problem to fix. You may have had problems in the past where you've had a SAN failure, or you've had compute failure, or even a bigger failure with the local geography, but that's simple. You put something back and it stays put back and working. Ransomware doesn't work like that. It keeps attacking you again and again and again. The only way to do this is to basically start again somewhere else. You need to start on a completely geographically diverse site where there's been no instance of this ransomware running whatsoever, and that's where we can come in. So what we deliver for you crucially, is a completely siloed environment for you in our data center, where we can bring back your servers on their own, uniquely, individually, different versions of them concurrently if needs be, so we can work out at what point this ransomware attack occurred. We can work out when it got infected. We can have multiple members of staff working on this for you. So instead of just you or your IT department working away, busily trying to get users working, keep the business running and fighting the ransomware, we're doing the entire recovery for you on your behalf 24/7. Another important point here is completely free invocation. We do this for a very good reason. What we've seen in the past, history has proven, people get a problem and they hesitate because it's going to cost to invoke. There's a big cost to invoke usually. That invocation is going to cost money. That money needs authority. That authority needs to come from somebody. There's a chain of command. There's a process. This slows everything right down. So we threw all of that away. We got rid of that at the beginning. So if at any point anybody can give us a call from that company and say, hey, we're having a really big problem here, we're not sure how it's going to play out, can we just start an invocation, please? And yes, we will absolutely do that. Let's get those cogs working at our side. Let's get one of our teams running on that recovery for you. Start bringing these servers back. Let's help you try and identify what this ransomware variant is. We can bring your servers back and blow them away, and bring them back and blow them away umpteen times over. The first problem you've got is that your SAN and your environment is completely infected. You've actually got no disk space free to start restoring things. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to format your SAN to make room to start doing restores that may or may not work? Nobody is going to make that call early days, because at the back of everybody's mind is still, worst case scenario, maybe we have to pay the ransom. But there's no point paying a ransom if you already formatted the SAN and got rid of the data. So you need space to work. You need hardware. You need staff. You need resource. You need, most importantly, is your data. So this data is sat on the Rubrik in your environment. It is clinically clean. It is immutable. It has not been interfered with. That data has also been replicated to our data center, where again, it is sat there. It's immutable. It's clinically clean. Nothing has happened to that data. And we can start to bring that data back piece by piece into your environment to help you get it working. At the same time, what we want to do is try and help you on your site as well. It may be that this ransomware attack is actually quite small. Maybe it's not got particularly large. Maybe you've only got to bring back a couple of servers for whatever reason. Maybe we can help you identify that. Great. We can use all our manpower at our side to help you fix your side very easily. That's also an option as well. The key point here is you've got somebody to call to give you resource in terms of the staff, in terms of the compute, the storage, the SAN, the networks, everything that you need. When we first take you on board and onboard you as a customer, we go through your entire DR process. We will talk to you, sit down, we will understand, where does your Active Directory sit? Where is your DNS? Where are your SQL servers? What order do things need to come back in? What are your networks? What are your VLANs? What are your subnets, your gateways? Where does everything need to sit? And we will virtually build this entire environment for you in our data center. Once that environment is built, we shut it down. We don't delete it. We just simply shut it down and leave it on standby for you. So at any point you need to invoke, we can do this invocation really very, very quickly. It's just a case of bringing that data back. The ransomware complication for us and for you is we just need to pick our way through those servers and understand where and what is infected and fix that with you as well. Can I just take the next slide, please, Emil? Okay, so on top of this, I just want to talk about connectivity. So we've gone to all the efforts here. We've created this clinically clean environment. We've got your servers back. Everything's nice and running. We're confident we haven't got any viruses swarming around. We haven't got any ransomware issues, but now we need to connect it back to your users. Now, in a typical DR situation, we can talk about IPsec tunnels, we can talk about MPLS, we can talk about a number of different ways to connect you layer 2 or layer 3 back into your network. But the problem is, if you haven't gone around that entire network and switched off every possible device that might be infected, what we then do, we risk reinfecting the data center that we've just recovered all your data into. And that's not something we want to risk. Ideally, we want to try and keep this as separate as possible. And that is potentially where you can also take the VDI service as well. And what we can deliver on top is this customized Windows 10 desktop experience that's generated from a clinically clean Windows 10 image that you gave us months in advance. It's customized to you. It sits in your Active Directory. It's got all your applications, your shortcuts, everything the users would need. And we can spin up, as it says, tens of thousands of seats publicly accessible across the internet, off web browser, off tablets, off phones, any device you choose. But because, again, we're only sending screen information and keyboard and mouse shortcuts, the ransomware is not going to attack this. We're not not going to spread that virus into this freshly recovered environment. It means the users can get up and working very, very quickly. They log in with their Active Directory credentials and carry on working, whilst the IT department can focus on this huge cleanup operation that's in front of them to actually take all of this equipment, figure out what's going on, clean it down, and get it ready to think about the migration back. Ransomware cleanup does seem to take a very, very long time in our experience. You know, we're not talking hours and we're not talking days. You know, there's some big names out there that have been hit with ransomware, and you're talking weeks to really get rid of that ransomware and do it properly. It's not something you're going to do very quickly. So if you don't have a plan to recover from a ransomware experience off-site, and I don't mean just off your main site and at a secondary location, I mean actually at a third-party location, because don't forget, ransomware will jump across any network it can get its paws on. So if you've got wide area network connectivity and your sites are connected together, there's a very good chance that ransomware has managed to spread from site A to site B to site C. So don't think that you've got this fantastic DR plan in mind where you've got all your equipment at site B and you just, you know, replicating your data or you're replicating your SAN. You know, ransomware is designed to make that non-effective. The only real solution to this is to have a completely independent backup device that is immutable, that replicates that data off to a completely separate area, and then have a clinically clean environment to bring it back. Okay, I think that's my slides, Mel. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian. That was great. So just to kind of go over there, the ADP's value add on top of the Rubrik proposition quickly. So Ian alluded to there, the service offering is absolutely huge, comes in many different flavors for our customers. That could be that you want to just replicate off-site, could be that you want the full backup as a service where you'd have your own service delivery manager and be able to use the Protect View portal, or it could be that you want the full insurance policy, that absolute last line of defense with the disaster recovery as a service, which of course you then get that free of charge ransomware remediation plan. All of our solutions can be consumed in a variety of different ways. That could be CapEx, it could be OpEx, paid monthly, quarterly, or annually, or it could also be a hybrid approach where you purchase the appliance and then layer the service on in a number of different OpEx ways. We're scalable. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have got customers on board as little as 5 terabytes, but equally, you know, we've got customers that are petabytes and petabytes. And if this is a solution that you think, you know, this enterprise grade solution could really help your organization, but with the current climate, you haven't currently got the budget, we can also talk about deferred payment plans with ETWorks.